Here's what happened. Adrienne, how do you improve people's lives through your business?
Okay, so I'm a coach and I mostly work with women, but if anybody finds themselves in this position, then by all means. But I work with people that feel stuck in self doubt and overthinking everything after life's big changes. And I help them to gain clarity, rebuild confidence, and trust in themselves again so they can create a future they're excited to wake up to. Basically, if you wake up in your life and you're like, I am not happy, whether it's in one area of your life or all areas of your life, and you know you want to make a change and whether you're afraid to do it, you feel stuck, you don't know how, or you don't even know what the change looks like, that's where you give me a jingle and we work through it. And so I do one-to-one coaching, I do workshops, I do group experiences, and I also teach people how to use AI as a thinking partner. Like everybody wants to use AI to make them faster, more productive, all of that stuff, but it's actually a really great interactive tool, as long as you take your insights and information away from the computer to see how it resonates, but you can use it as a powerful thinking partner to kind of help you get over those stuck points. So I teach that as well.
Yeah. And what comes up for me is this capping our own potential. Like I believe we can cap it as entrepreneurs, our own potential. And
hmm
then you were mentioning experiences. So I'm wondering, how have adventures helped you to break the limits you put on yourself?
Okay. So I'm so glad you asked me about this because people that know me later and like in this later part of my life, not that like I'm old, but you know what I mean, like came to know me as an adult. Let's just say that. Like I was in law enforcement and now I'm an endurance athlete. So like I don't, I'm not winning anything by any means, but like I get out there and I do a lot, whether it's 29 Everest hiking, I've done ultra events, I've run, God, probably about a dozen marathons, even more for half marathons. And if you knew me only as a child, you'd be like, that is not the same person. Cause I was like allergic to gym class. Like, and as I got older, I realized there was a lot of stories around me telling me how I'm not an athlete. But I also had like a ton of anxiety as a kid. And part of it was I was afraid to look stupid in front of people because I have everybody telling me, hey, you're not an athlete. You're not good at this. You're not coordinated. So I didn't even want to try when I was younger. And then as I got older, I kind of hit a point where, well, first, I kind of defied what I thought I could do as I went into law enforcement. You got to go through the academy, maintain a fitness standard, all that stuff. So that kind of like opened the door a bit. But then when I started traveling, I started doing physical things in those locations as a means to see it. So like kayaking the Nepali coast, just doing epic hikes or kayaking or whatever it might have been in different places as a way to see it. So then I decided, and this was actually, I think it was 2017, I made a vision board of places I wanted to go and like the physical things that I would do when I was there. And so it became a condition of I'm only going to travel to a place if I'm doing something physical in that place as a means to see it and experience it. And I think for me, the more that I did physical adventures, and I mean, I do like, not just organized events. I'll be hiking Teton Crest Trail here coming up. Like I do, things out on my own as well. But I realized in doing them, like there's highs and lows in every event. And I have done events where I am like very well trained, and I have done events where I'm like adventure ready. I'm just going to show up and wing it, and like we're going to get through this and it's going to be great. But whichever spectrum you're on, whether you go out on your own or you do an event, whether you're ready or not ready, there's going to be ups and downs. Like everything is not going to go according to plan, and there's going to be moments where you're like why did I pay somebody to like inflict this pain upon myself? Why did I do that? Like, and I think it just, for me, it has become a mirror for life. Like if I can choose the uncomfortable moments and I know like I'm going to get to the other side of it, and it's that constant reinforcement of this is going to get really hard, and I know why I signed up, and I know why I'm trying to push my body, and I know what I'm trying to experience, and I'm going to do it anyways even when it's hard. Like then when life throws you all those curveballs, all, none of the stuff you wanted when you wanted it, and you feel really low, like I have been in that low spot, whether chosen or not chosen, enough times to know like I can get to the other side of it. So for me, when I was younger, I think it was, if I felt uncomfortable, or afraid, like I said, looking stupid, even saying out loud if I wanted something that, you know, a dream or whatever that sounded ridiculous that people wouldn't get, I'd hold myself back because I was afraid or I was uncomfortable. And now through adventures and through like moving my body in different ways, I know like you can be uncomfortable and you'll be just fine. Like you'll get through it. And it's not like a perfect practice, of course, you know, like I still have my moments where I doubt, but it makes that a lot easier to deal with and go through since I've started like really leaning into the physical side of stuff.
Well, and it's like choosing your challenge to be able to provide that evidence. And you even said it of seeing it for the location itself, but even seeing it for yourself of believing in yourself that
Mm-hmm.
comes up. Like that's
Yeah.
the reps, putting in the reps in
Mm-hmm.
those moments of those challenges for the unexpected challenges that come up.
Mm-hmm.
So with the adventures, you mentioned a few of those. Is there a moment that comes up for you um, for a story that made you recognize you had an outdated belief on one of your adventures that you had to
Mm-hmm.
face?
Oh, yeah. So this is probably like not um okay. So whew, goodness. Okay, one of them, yeah. So Antelope Canyon, 50 miler. And it was just atrocious weather. Like it rained the whole time. It was bad. And they decided to um suspend the time on it because like the conditions were so bad, and they're like, you know, so I came up against the time block and things are like literally like flooding and a mess all around me. And I was hurting, and I had this moment, like this next area that we were going into was it was like a slot canyon, and I had already been through one slot canyon before things were like flooding, and it was, you know, there's ladders and stuff. It's a little dicey, and they're like, "Oh, you can keep going." And it was like me and one other woman at this point, and there were other people behind us, but like the pack of people were ahead of us. And um, one thing, and I always tell myself like, "Oh, you'll push through, you'll be fine." And in that moment, and this is like the first time I ever did that, was I was like, my body, the conditions, everything. I was like, I don't think I'm physically capable of handling the extra challenges like going down these ladders and stuff into the slot canyon um with where I'm at right now. And even though I had the option to continue because of the time, I actually didn't. And that is the single only time I did that. And it was like overriding every single thing in me, because I'm like, you're giving up. But I thought about it and I was like really kind of tuning in, and my body was telling me like, no. And it's not because I didn't like, it wasn't so much of, I felt like, oh, if I can't do this, acts, or like I'm giving up on myself. Like I had this knowing that this was not like the right thing for me at this time. And then on the flip side, I want to share a story. It's ridiculous, but we're friends. It's fine. Um this was it's like total opposite. So
Mhm.
I do a rural half marathon. This is several years back. And like we went out to eat, we did, you know, a bunch of stuff the night before, ate Buffalo Wild Wings. Like I was not like race day ready, we'll say. Like I was not making great decisions leading up to the race. And um like I wanted to do this course, like it, you know, it was scenic, it was beautiful, it was whatever, and I was trained for it. Conditions were fine, it's a little warm, but um so the race day hits and my stomach just drops. Like it is not good. I don't feel good. And I'm like, oh, am I going to do this race? I'm like, I'm going to do the race. I'm fine. It's fine. So I line up and I do the race. And I mean, it was like a roller coaster the entire time. And of course, it's rural. So like, there's like a bathroom stop at halfway and there's bathroom stop at the start finish line. And that is it. And so as I'm running and like my stomach, it's literally like it drops and then I'm fine, and it drops and I'm fine. And I am thinking like all of these things of like, could I knock on that farmhouse door and just be like, hey, can I use your restroom? Like I don't think I look like a serial killer. I'm sure they'll probably let me in. And then I'm like, oh, is there a tree line? And so like there's all this crazy troubleshooting going through my brain because I'm like, otherwise, other than my stomach, like, threatening hell at me, like, this is great. This is an awesome day. I'm so happy to be here. And so I do all of this, whatever. My stomach holds out, which to this day don't know how it did, right? I'm like a roller coaster of emotion. I'm sobbing, I'm laughing. I'm like one person on the side of the road and I must have looked like a crazy lady. But I finished the race and I'm telling a friend about it and he's like, "Well, why didn't you just call? I could have came and picked you up." And I'm like, of all the things that went through my brain, stopping that race was never one of them. And that was like that wasn't like a fear-based or I don't know. It just was like, I know I can do this race. I wanted to do this race. I signed up for it. I committed to it. Stomach issue aside, it is a glorious day. I'm happy to be here. So I probably sounds like two very contradicting things, but it comes back to the idea of like, one belief I've always had is I'll just push through. And that didn't matter what my body was telling me. It didn't matter what my intuition was telling me. Like that was just the way I operated. I am going to push through. And I'm at a point now where I can like really tune into my body. And if my body is saying like, no, this is not the right thing. And it's not because I'm afraid of failing or looking stupid. It just genuinely doesn't feel aligned for me. Now I know I can walk away from it and be fine with that. Whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like no matter what, I can push through. And you can take that to adventures, into work, into anything. That was just a belief I had. I can push through. And to my detriment, we'll say, in different situations. And so, like, it's two very contrasting stories, but that was a belief I always had. And now I kind of have my body to help me work through, whether or not I actually should push through.
Well, and it's interesting because I relate to this quote from John Busher, founder of Lifebook, where there is no one right way, but there is a
Mm-hmm.
right way for you.
Yes.
And understanding that if that's success or if that is achievement, whatever someone comes to thinking like the pinnacle is for life, it's asking yourself, is this your right way or was that a way that was put on you? Going back to beliefs. So it's interesting to have you navigate that and then figuring out your right way moving forward and connecting back to the body. I'm excited to get into the signals and figure out those for you of what those signals are like for what they feel. But before I talk about how one of the most important skills you can master as an entrepreneur is communication with your body. I would really like your take on how this skill is important for you.
Yes. So when I went through my Wayfinder Life Coach training with Martha Beck, one of the tools that you learn is called the body compass. And it's a tool where you're you're tuning in, you're getting very in tune with how your body feels in different situations. So to kind of explain high level what it is, and I do this with every client that I work with and I use it myself every day. Like it has become an integral part of like my decision making process in life. But to calibrate it, you do a neutral body scan. So you're not like super emotional about anything. It's just kind of, you're just being your status quo. It's, and you feel how your body feels when you're just being. So maybe you have like a permanent crick in your shoulder and that is part of your baseline. And when you do the scan, you just know it. Or, maybe you don't really have a whole lot going on and it's just your body as it is. You can, maybe feel your pulse, whatever, but some warmth, some cold, whatever, but nothing crazy going on. So you do that, you get your neutral. And then the power of visualization. So we would step into a challenging time in your life. And it's not like we're not going trauma, not worst case, worst day of your life, anything like that. Just something that was uncomfortable enough where when you visualize it, when you remember it, you can put yourself back there and you could feel it in your body. And so then as you're in that challenging time, you do the body scan again and you notice anything that changes. So for me, one of my big signals when things are not great is I get like extreme tension in my upper body, like my shoulders, my jaw. And so I know when I'm starting to like clench, or I also hold my breath. When I start noticing that, I know, hey, something's off here. So go through the difficult time. And there's a scale, and you kind of like, you'd rate it on this number between 0 and -10 for the challenging time. So you have like an idea of, is it leaning towards this number that was your baseline difficult experience, or is it even beyond it? And then you do the same thing for the positive. Could be, great day, could be the best day of your life, or could just be like a time that you were really in flow, you were happy, things were going well. Do the visualization again. And then you notice how that feels in your body. And for me, it's like very like a relaxation, light, like breath out kind of feeling. And like there's no tension in my upper body, which, like I said, that's kind of, I tend to carry that. Um, so once you have that baseline, and one of the things that, um, like you play hot and cold, or you're getting closer, or further away, like when you're a kid, right? It's kind of like that. Like, does it feel like you're getting closer to your truth? So anytime, and you could start practicing with small stuff, like the age old, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Right. And you visualize like, okay, well, what are my actual options that I have here? And, chicken, whatever. And you visualize yourself eating that meal. And you're like, how does it feel in your body? And this may sound silly, but when you practice with the small stuff, it becomes a lot easier to read the signals of the big stuff. And if you actually like feel okay, and then okay, now I'm gonna picture having steak or whatever, and like, how does that feel in relation? One is going to feel different than the other because it's your body's giving you truth. And so for me, I have found as an entrepreneur, when I get into this is a good idea, and I don't really check in to see like, is my mind telling me, is it a good idea, or is it like a full body yes kind of thing? And then I'm like, this should work, this should be good, people are going to get this. And like, I kind of start running away with the thinking mind. And then I check in later. I usually find that things are misaligned and didn't get the reaction I thought it was going to get. And then as I'm going through it, I don't feel as good about doing it or delivering it as I thought I would. So now whenever I'm creating something new, that is something I do, is like I do the body check-in and I see how it feels. I'm like, is this actually aligned for me? Like, does it just sound good, or do I really want to do this? And that has helped guide my decision making quite a lot.
I really like that, and it connects to like how people, especially as each entrepreneur is going through their journey, you can get people coming in and a lot of times shooting all over you, like telling you,
Yes,
you should try this strategy, should try this habit, try this big shiny object here that's going to get you to the goals that you want. And that's where it connects to like this tool, the compass. I also connect back to a technique that I share, the truth anchor technique, but it's always coming back to what is actually resonating for you, going back to what is your right way, because that can help you to avoid wasting a lot of time, energy, and money as you're working on your goals. So I really connect. That's such a powerful tool, as well as the checking in when it comes to any strategies, habits. That's where you can get to the bigger. But then it's, of course, starting small with something like dinner. Like, what are we going to eat today? Like,
exactly.
what resonates?
It's a practice, I think, of, instead of worrying about what everyone else is going to think or what culture expects, what you've been told is the right path, you are noticing what your body feels, whether something's right for you or not. And like, that's grounded in you. Like you said, there's no right way, but there's a right way for you kind of thing. Like, that is giving yourself that space, that pause, and saying like, is this what I want? Or is this like something else telling me it's what I should want? And I think as an entrepreneur, especially, right, like all the shiny things and all the ways of doing things, the way you should show up on social media, or how you should price your offers or whatever. And then maybe you follow this other person's plan because they're doing it and they're successful at it. But if there's some type of misalignment for you, it is not going to be executed in the same way. It just isn't.
And I go to, like I say, there's a lot of like your body's constantly communicating with you. And so it doesn't mean that, let's say you go down a path, that you can't stay on that and make improvements based off of the results that you're getting. Because when I think about us talking about this, of figuring out your right way, it doesn't mean ignore the results in front of you, of like the data points and like, is this actually working? Am I, either hitting the revenue goal for the month, or am I hitting the goals I'd set for this business? 2 years out, 3 years out, or
Mm-hmm.
is there progress that's being made? So that's how you can take it in a tactical way for figuring out your right way, is also noticing on the data, is that complementary with this path that I'm on? What do I have to adapt on that habit level or deepen the belief system level to
Yeah.
move forward towards what I want?
And that's it. I think if you do the check-in, which whatever methodology you're using, and, your body is saying, yes, like, I want to be doing this. I want this outcome. This is the journey that I want to be on right now. I'm, enjoying the process, the whole bit. And the numbers are not supporting that. Like, that doesn't mean like it's not right for you. Like, if you want it, but the numbers are like, this isn't working, there's the space to reevaluate what is the other approach I can take, because, there's a million ways to get from A to Z. So just because your initial attempt and path isn't working out the way you want it, but if you still have that deep knowing that like this is for you, that's where you got to start adapting, reading the data points, adjusting as you go. And same thing on like the flip side could be like the numbers are great, everything, and you're like, this is better than I could have thought when I started it. But you do that check in and you're like, but this is not what I want to be doing. This is not what I want for myself. Like, then maybe there's an exit strategy out of that offer, or maybe you can transition it in a way where it feels more aligned. But that body check in is going to give you almost like another data point, but for yourself. Like, you're not just being driven by what outside of you is saying is right or working. Like, you're making sure you're still in alignment with whatever that is. And if your body's like, yeah, we want this, and somehow it's not working, it's like, well, this is an opportunity to reevaluate the how we're getting there.
Yeah, there was this another entrepreneur that said she had the realization that she didn't have to have everything perfect for it to still be right. Like, I
Yeah.
think I said that right. Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
things didn't have to be all perfect for it to be right. It actually could still be just right, even in the chaos. If
Mm-hmm.
it's something where she feels it resonates for her and it's the path that you're moving on, you can make those improvements and continue to grow. And it's interesting because going into then like beliefs right now for you, like what is an outdated belief that you want to have stop driving you?
Um, so there are two beliefs that have been like, just beliefs that were capital T truths for me at one point in my life. And now they're the beliefs that I continuously do the work on. So one of them is I'll just push through this and rest later, right? Like, I'll get it done. I'll get it done. It's fine. And I will, it's like I will sacrifice whatever needs to be sacrificed to get it done. And sometimes, yeah, you do have to like make sacrifices. You have to do the uncomfortable thing. But I'm not in a point where I'm going to do that just to do it, just to say I didn't give up on it. I'm going to figure out the sustainable way for me to do that. And so if my body is like screaming at me, whether something's off or I'm pushing it too hard, then I'm going to evaluate of like, what can I shift to feel better in this situation? Or I think something that I couldn't wrap my mind around before was you have the goal, the dream, and you're like, I'm going to do that come hella high water. And as a high achiever, that's the path we take. It is gonna get done, world be damned kind of thing. And I've gotten to a point where, and it is still work, because I it's a constant reminding, but treating things more like an experiment. And it's less outcome dependent. Like, you can try it, see where it goes. And sometimes, like I said, like, something looks great on paper and you think, this is the thing that I want for myself. This is the thing that I want for my life. And then as you're doing it and it's coming to life, you're like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Like, if I knew that achieving this was going to require me to do all of these things or become this type of person or sacrifice all of this stuff, then I don't want that thing. Actually, this is not how and that's where like the previous me would be like, you said you were going to do it. Like, you said that was the goal. You were going to achieve the goal and then you could put it behind you. And now it's like, I don't have to push through if that truly isn't the thing I want anymore. And that again is like the body check-in of like, in my bones, do I deeply want this thing? If the answer is yes, then I'm going to push through, in the sense I'm going to find a sustainable way to get there. Maybe it's going to adjust my timeline, adjust my methodologies, adjust who I'm asking for help, whatever it might be. But if I'm doing something new, like something I've never done before, and I thought I wanted it, and I'm like, actually, I hate this, I'm not going to push through for the sake of pushing through. Like, why? I know I don't want it. I've tried it, and I'm like, well, this is not good. This is not what I wanted, And but that belief is almost like an automatic thing that creeps back up. Like, I could be in the middle of something where I'm like, actually, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's not for me. I don't want to do it, or I want to pivot. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like you're almost at the finish line for it. Let's just keep going, and then we'll do something else after or whatever. And I have to remind myself, like, no, if you truly do not want to be on this path, you don't want this outcome, you don't like, why do it? Like, our time is finite. Well, why expend effort and energy for something we don't want? And the second belief is, if I don't do this, nobody else will. And that belief has, it's driven me to, get promotions. I, get multiple degrees, whatever it is, or earn a certain amount of money. That belief, as an achiever, like, has made me, versatile, the person people can go to, yada, yada. But the thing is, like, you don't have to do it all. And as an entrepreneur, particularly, like, I do pretty much everything in my business at this point on my own. So I do wear all of the hats, right? And yeah, until I get to a decision point where, like, do I want to grow and have a team, or do I want this to just be like the one woman show that sustains my lifestyle, and that's simple and good enough for me? It's that if I don't do it, no one else will. Well, in my case right now, that is very much true. But the thing is, like, do I have to do that? Or is that something I think I'm expected to do because X, Y, and Z? And so when I get into that belief state, I kind of examine, well, like, why am I doing this? What is the outcome I'm going for? And then it goes back to, like, is this the outcome that I want? Okay, is this something I have to do right now, even though it's uncomfortable to get to the outcome? Or am I just doing this because Chad on the internet said that's the right way to do it? No offense to any Chads that might be listening, but and so it's kind of that, like, reminder of, in this exact moment, related to the business specifically, yeah, nobody else is going to do it if I don't do it. But, like, do I have to do it? But before, like, when I was in an organization or in school or what, like, I picked up the slack for the world. I'm like, oh, you didn't write your 3 pages? No problem. I'll write them on top of mine. Like, I'll get, like, projects done. Or, Sam didn't return the call. I'll call that person in 4 more. No big deal. Like, I would, and it's exhausting. And that's where you lead yourself to burnout. You do, because the resentment grows. You don't want to be doing that. Which I'm going down another path. But yeah, the 2 beliefs, I'll push through and rest later. And if I don't do this, no one else will. And those are ones that creep up in a different way now, but they're always still kind of there. And I have to kind of, like, walk myself through, do the check-ins, get to the why I'm doing it. And then, like, evaluate, like, is this what I should be doing or not?
Well, getting specific you talked about how if there's a goal or a dream, and then you notice it's not something that's resonating for you, you can have the ability to change and not keep pushing through. Going to that first belief. Yeah, is there a specific goal that comes up for you relating to this that you experienced, or dream that you had that you realized, nope, this is not it?
Yeah. So, 2. One of them was, when I was in my previous organization, I was in law enforcement. I was promoting fairly quickly, and I was, doing really well, succeeding. I was number 2 in command at a station of 400 people. And, everyone's like, oh, you could be chief of the organization. You could do this. And I knew, I'm like, if I buckle down and I keep, like, climbing the ladder and doing all these things, I could do that. I could be the person in charge. And for a brief moment, I'm like, well, if I could do that, then all the things that I'm unhappy about, or I want to change, or I want to make better, then it falls on me. And I could do that, even though that's not as simplistic as things are, my cute idealistic ways. But then I thought, like, okay, well, now, I promote. Now I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm getting calls in the few hours that I have off for guidance on how to handle certain situations. And if something big happens, then I can't take the leave that I had scheduled. Or if something changes, all of a sudden I need to switch shifts. So it would just turn my life upside down. And it's like, it is, the higher you go, it is just going to be more of this. Is that what I want for my life? Do I not want to have autonomy over my schedule, over my energy? And do I actually like want to be in this organization and be a leader in it? And when I, like, as I'm climbing and I'm, getting the pat on the back and like, oh, you're doing a great job, blah, blah, blah. Like, I kind of convinced myself for a little bit, like, yeah, this is a good path. But when I really, like, I mean, I started heading towards burnout and, slowly stripping away the things that ground me and light me up to make time for the thing that was not lighting me up. I got to like a reckoning point where I'm like, is this what I want my life to be, or is it not? And once I definitively knew like this is not, then it was like, okay, it's time to walk away. And then in my business, when I first started, I started kind of moving into the grief space, and I was a crisis counselor before. When I was in law enforcement, I was peer support member, so working with people in crisis during losses, challenging times. And so I had this very heavy background of working with people, like kind of in this emotional state. And so I started pointing everything my business towards that. And then I realized, like, when you're deep in that emotional state of grief, you're not necessarily thinking about like what's next yet. And as a coach, that is kind of my work. It's like, what do you want for your life, and how can we make the plan and the habits and the systems for you to get what you want in your life? And when I realized, every time I get on these group calls or I'm talking about this stuff, like, it's draining me, energetically draining me. This is not this is not my messaging. This is not the direction I want to go in. And the more I did, like, my podcast was pivoted towards living with loss, and I was running these grief groups, and I'm doing all of these things, and I was gaining momentum. But I'm like, I got to the realization where I'm like, energetically, my body's telling me I don't want to be in this early part of grief. I want to be like, the change has happened, whatever the change was, not even necessarily loss, but your identity's kind of shifted in some way because of something, whether chosen or not. And then, but you're at the point where something's got to give and you want to make a change. Like, that's where I want to come in. And so, of course, I had to like kind of reconfigure everything and change the name and branding and all of this stuff. And it would have been easier to stay on that path, and I was building momentum on it. But I knew, like, why am I building something that I don't want to sustain, or that's not sustaining me? So I made the change. But yeah, those old beliefs would just be like, this is the path you're on. This is what you said you're doing. Like, who all of a sudden in the 11th hour is just like, actually, I don't really want to be talking about this. Like that. And it almost feels like wishy-washy in my brain. Like, my achiever brain is like, oh, you're flip-flopping. And but no, like, I had an image of what this was going to be and how I was going to show up and how I was going to feel doing the work. And that was based on doing it as an added responsibility in another job, not my full-time situation. And so once I started getting into this, and I realized, well, none of this is what I thought it was going to be. This doesn't feel at all how I thought it was going to feel. And then it's like, well, if I want it to feel different, I got to do something different. And out loud, that's uncomfortable to say. I remember like hitting post on the old Instagram and like changing the cover of the podcast and doing all. I'm like, oh God, people are going to think I'm ridiculous. But like, I tried it. I thought it was going to look a certain way, and it didn't. So stay in a situation where I'm miserable and be a bit of a hypocrite, as I'm like, you can make some changes and make things to be what you want, or actually make the changes. And it's damn uncomfortable when you're making the changes sometimes. But if it's the change that is right for you, and that in your bones, then sometimes you just got to be uncomfortable.
Yes, and to get even deeper into that, because this is where I feel it can get missed for entrepreneurs, is like, what were more of those thoughts that were coming up? Like, is there a scene that you remembered where you had this conversation with yourself, and like the thought battles, I call them tornado thoughts, that were
Hmm.
roaming up in there, and you're having to navigate that because it's messy. But
Hmm.
I feel it'd be so powerful to understand your experience with specifically changing aspects of the business.
Yeah. Some of the thoughts. Let's see. Um, she doesn't know what she wants. How can she help me figure out what I want? Um, she's indecisive. Uh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Um, or the flip side, she's impulsive, and that's why she went down this track. And like, if she, a lot of it came back to, how can I be a coach if I can't outwardly figure out my own stuff? And the thing is, like, we're all people figuring out our own stuff. I'm just somebody that, because of the business, has chosen to figure it out in front of people.
Yeah.
And but that came up, like I said, I can remember I redesigned the podcast cover. um I had my messaging kind of outline changed up. I knew, and I'm like, oh, this feels right. This is the work I was doing, but just with somebody that's a little bit further along in the journey, and not necessarily pertaining to somebody specific with the death, but like the bulk of it is there. Like when you go through something hard, you how long you stay in that valley is different for everybody, but eventually you got to the point where you're like, what's next? And rather than meeting people when they're deep in the valley and not having the emotional space and capacity to start walking towards what's next, I want to meet them in the what's next. But so it's all related, of course, but I just had this outward thing of like, wait, she was just promoting this group and this program, and now she's saying, like, she's talking about something different. And I did a podcast episode, like my first one, on Better Days Start Today, when I switched from living with loss. And I explained, I was like, how, I can't, as awkward as I feel, because it also feels like failing in front of somebody, right? Like, I'm on this path, I'm on this mission, and I'm saying I'm this thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, actually now I'm gonna shift things. I was making it about me, and like, something's wrong with me because I'm changing my mind, or and I think really what it came down to was, um I had an image of how a certain thing would go in my mind, and when it just didn't feel the way I thought it would, like the results were there. I was like, why continue? But it was just a lot of beating myself up of, you can't make up your mind, you're going to look unprofessional, people aren't going to know what to expect from you, or how could you say that you have a business and you're a coach in this if you're changing what you're talking about? And I changed everything. And like, one lonely comment on YouTube, actually, like, some lady was like, you're not that important, I don't think anybody's really wondering like what you're doing and why, or something. And I was like, there it is, see, people don't really care that much, it's totally fine. And I
Yeah.
think she was trying to like ruin my day, but it had like the total opposite effect of like, you're right, like, I'm judging myself for making this change and doing it outward when nobody's really even thinking about it.
Well, and I resonate with a lot of what you talked about with those tornado thoughts. And for me, it's hitting this imaginary wall that can come up
Hmm.
in those moments where you're trying to push through. There's this resistance, and you have this belief of like, okay, you got to keep pushing through because you said this is who you are, and
Hmm.
how you're showing up. And then just realizing that change is a part of the journey with being an entrepreneur and just a human being overall. And
Hmm.
then recognizing how I connect to that is this fear I had of making the mistakes. And then what people are going to say to me, like, they're going to be like, "Oh, you're such an idiot," or like, like, there's no way you can help other people.
Yep.
What are you doing?" And then it goes to like the worst case, which is now I'm going to die because of this, like all this hate that's coming my way. Like, people are just going to go off on the comments. And it's interesting what you talked about, which is so important, is to realize that you are part of it, but you're not all of it.
Hmm.
Meaning that this message you have within you, or the support that you provide for other people, you're just one part in this whole journey of
Yeah.
helping those out there. And being able to remind yourself of that, I believe is so important, of just realizing, okay, my big problems I have in my mind, they're small in comparative to the world and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really help you with the capacity to be able to recognize what these are and then move through them. And that
Mm.
is so powerful for a gift that each person can give themselves as they continue to move forward in the journey.
That's the thing. I think if you look at most people that have been an entrepreneur and in business for a long period of time, they evolve and they change. And, um, we both do 29029 Everesting. Jesse Itzler, one of the co-founders for that, when he started his career, he was like rapping, and he did like the song Go New York Go. And then, he had Marquis Jet and Zico Coconut Water and all of these different ventures. And you know, in his personal life, he was an endurance athlete. He was doing 100 milers. Like he's been running forever. And as he's gotten older and moved through his career, things have shifted towards like, All Day Running Co., the Running Man event, 29 Everesting. And, his trajectory has shifted. And I mean, I don't think, as he was like an 18 or 20-year-old rapper thinking like I'm going to be the guy that has like this massively successful endurance hiking company, maybe he did, I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, people that have been entrepreneurs and in business for, 20, 30 years, like their career like takes all different curves and turns. But when you're in it, at least for me, my experience, like when I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I got to make this change. I'm like, oh, this says something bad about me. And it's like, no, as a person, I'm changing, I'm evolving. I've, you know, put this out in the world. I've experienced it, and it's not quite how and what I want it to be. So like make the change. But in our minds, like when you're in that moment, it feels like this is the end all be all. And it's really not. It's just like a little blip on the road, on the map, unless you plan on like just deciding not to be in business anymore, then maybe that's the end of your entrepreneurial story. But for most of us, I think like the ebbs and the flows and the changing, it's going to change with us, because that's like when you're a solo entrepreneur, especially, like you're intertwined with your business.
Yeah, I go to this, where you start isn't going to be where you end up if you keep moving
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Exactly.
So now you had those two outdated beliefs. What for you is like new empowering beliefs that you would want to replace those outdated beliefs with that are driving you?
Hmm.
What's that current uh, experience like?
I think two beliefs. So I'll push through and rest later. Um, I think that the belief now is I can figure this out without abandoning myself. Because I think, like you said, there's a lot of different ways to get to the end point, and I can get very fixated on like this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through. But when I take that step back and I check in, and if it's something I want in my life, then it becomes I can do this without abandoning myself. Like there's a different way to do it that isn't exhausting, that doesn't make me hate my life, that doesn't make me frustrated with myself, and that feels empowering in the fact that there's a lot of choice there. There's choice to change the path. There's um, just figuring out what else can you bring in to support you. Is it people? Is it technology? Is it a different end goal? Or it just, when you're not so married to like this one way, and you actually take the step back, and that's where like I can figure this out without abandoning myself. Like I can still feel good in my body. I can still be rested. I can still like myself and the path that I'm on. And I can still do this thing. It just might look a little bit different than I thought it would. And to me, like giving myself back that choice like feels like freedom.
Mm. When diving even deeper, because I've shared before, like the broken swing model, where you can have that outdated belief and then you just feel stuck because there's not that new empowering belief that helps to have those two chains that you can hold on to as you're swinging back and forth with momentum and then moving backwards naturally with the nervous system. What for you have become like the one or two habits that show you evidence for that new empowering belief?
Hmm. Show me evidence. I would say a big thing that I do to like get into that mindset and step away from like the pushing um is walking, getting outside. Like when I feel like my mind is spinning, like the tornado thoughts, and like there's this only one way and I got to figure it out, I got to push through that. Stepping away from it and like consciously stepping away and getting outside and walking, um, calms me down, calms my nervous system down, calms my mind down. And then I know, like, okay, no, I have a choice in how I approach this and how I do it. Um, so I would say, like, especially if you're an entrepreneur and your schedule is a little bit more yours than people that may work in a traditional company, figure out the thing that's going to kind of like bring you down a little bit, like not down as in like bad mood, but you know, like the stress level down a bit and help you return to yourself. And you don't have to only do that like first thing in the morning or late at night, you know, like at the end of your day. You can figure out ways to work that in during the day if you need to give yourself space, so you can not be fixated on the thing in front of you, and you can remind yourself that, you know, there's a lot of different choices, that when you're sitting there in that mental spiral that you can't always see, but the space, I think, helps me a lot.
Are there other ones too that come up for habits besides just the walking that connect to for you for ways to release that stress out?
Oh, okay. Yeah. If we're talking about like the stress that starts with, oh
Yeah,
yeah. I've,
let's bring that in because I know. Yeah, I know there's.
uh, yeah. So like the walking, that's like the non-negotiable, for sure. But I ride my Peloton a ton. For me, physical movement is a big one for me, because you know that like old adage, move your body, change your mind. Like I have found that to be very, very true for me. It's when I stay like stagnant and still and I ruminate that I can't necessarily even reach what my body is telling me, because I'm like in this amped up state. So yeah, some form of workout or walking, cold plunging, that'll shock your system a bit. Got one in my garage, so I do I do that. That's a nice reset when I need it. Um, Journaling is another big thing. I've been journaling since I was in second grade. Um, for me, journaling helps me get the mess out of my mind, because like the thoughts can seem so big and scary and confusing when you're just ruminating on them, but once you write them down, it's like you suck the power right out of them, and it becomes a much more manageable situation, whatever it is. Um, let's see. Another thing I do, and this, like, I've shared it a couple times on social media, which I may go to sharing it like once a week, but I love oracle cards. And for me, it's a way of connecting with my intuition. Just like I ask a, you know, simple question like, what energy do I need today? Or what energy would feel supportive today? Or what message do I need to receive? And you know, I grab a deck, whichever one is like my hand is going towards, that I decide on that day, and I pull a card, and then I kind of meditate on it. I like look at the imagery, and of course they all come with a book that is like, this card means this. But before I ever look at that, I really look at the imagery and think about like what's coming up in my body, like what is this telling me, what is there. And really it's like a conversation with myself, which may sound a little nutty, but I mean it is, because I think like that imagery, it's pulling up something to my consciousness that I need to recognize in that moment. So that's one that's like a little bit unconventional, but I do that every day. Like in the morning when I have my cup of coffee, I pull a card and I'm like, you know, what's there for me today? And really it's just awakening myself, I think, in something that I need to focus on. Um, yeah, I think online with the physical stuff, like I said, I'm going to do this hike in the Tetons. And part of that is disconnecting. I think, especially as entrepreneurs, the tornado thoughts, the fear, all that comes up. For me, it is compounded when I'm in front of a screen.
Mhm.
So if I can, whether it is, you know, a 5-day hiking trip or it's just an afternoon, building in a pocket of time where I'm not going to be attached to my screen. I'm just going to, you know, be away from all of it in one capacity or another. And on that note, like when I walk, typically I do not have headphones in ever. And that's just because like that time is for me without anybody else's input. And that has been helpful. The other thing is like it's just fun. Like I do, you know, I'm obsessed with Legos. I have an absurd amount of sets. That's the word I'm looking for. An absurd amount of sets. But the act of and you know, I know different people that like maybe they crochet or they do jigsaw puzzles, but having to focus on doing something with your hands, it takes you out of that thought spiral in your mind. And so another way, like recently, the house I'm living in now, I live outside of Coeur d'Alene and I have a lawn. So I grew up in apartments and then I lived in the desert for 15 years and I never had, well, I lived in California too, but that was also an apartment. But I never had a lawn before that, like, and I know like most people, like, I'm going to have somebody else mow my lawn. But for me, like, I'm walking, I'm outside and I'm doing something that specific thing, like when you're like the before and after is very visible and you're like, I did that. So you're giving yourself a win. Like maybe it's not related to your business, but like that's a momentum point. Like you felt stuck, weren't making the decision, you're afraid to act, whatever it was. And then you go outside and you do something and you could see the before and after and you're like, I did that. And that's like making my bed in the morning. That's another like non-negotiable because it's the first win of the day. Like I already won I already won. My room looks tidy and nice right when I get out of it, and maybe that's going to be like the tidiest thing that goes on today. And that's okay, but just building in little things that probably sound frivolous, but until you start practicing those habits, you'll see how they make your body feel. And for me, if it's calming and it gives me space, then I'm going to stick with it.
Well, I go to like the small wins, they lead to the big wins. And it's
Yeah.
interesting for like how you talk about these wins outside of the business, because especially if you are stuck in the business and things aren't working out, it can be fucking exhausting to try to keep pushing through
Yeah.
on something that you feel is the current state you're in. It's just not working. And when you talk about that movement, recognizing that literally, when I learned this, I was amazed. I was like, oh yeah, movement literally produces energy. And so with feeling more energized, as you talk about with the walks or the workouts, Peloton, then you're going to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And you're going to have new perspective and be able to figure out new strategies to those challenges. And then having those wins externally will just continue to fuel the momentum going into the business, because your life's interconnected in all these different areas. And so it's all going to blend together, which is really powerful to continue to remind ourselves as we're going through this and we're in those, especially those valleys, to come back to that for other ways to bring those small wins in.
I wanted to circle back to, like, we were talking about adventures and our beliefs and that how that impacts our beliefs. And I mentioned like the one belief that I had and how it played out in two different scenarios. But part of the reason that I love adventures, especially adventures like related to travel or doing like different hikes and activities. And if you're an entrepreneur that isn't into like super physical stuff, I say like give it a little bit of a chance because you'll see how it'll impact you in your business when you do that. Because I was never an athlete. Like I said, if people that knew me when I was younger, they're like, she's like trying to find a way out of gym class. Like she, is the worst kickball player we've ever seen in our lives, like pick her last kind of thing. And now like, I do all of these things, but part of it is because it gives me a feeling that I love, a feeling of accomplishment, a feeling of putting in the work for something and knowing like I did this because I made myself capable of doing this. And also like if I have these habits that support me, the movement practice, the getting outside, and then I have something on the calendar that I know in some capacity, I like to, it's something I borrowed from Jesse, is he talks about being adventure ready. Like I don't like if you're like, hey, I'm gonna go, climb Mount Katahdin next week in Maine, and I just happen to be on the East Coast. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, you want to go? Yeah, I'd love to do that hike with you. Like I don't ever want to be in a position where people that I'm connected with, my friends, my family, are like, hey, let's do this thing, and I'm not physically capable. So by having something on the calendar, having those adventures, it keeps me open to different opportunities, different experiences, and connecting with people that like similar things while saving my sanity at the same time, which is pretty key. And the other thing, I don't think I mentioned it, but like the adventures mimic real life. Like you could be super trained for something or not super trained. I think I said that, but like you're going to go through the ups and downs. And when you do something like that, that's like a personal hobby, it's low stakes, and you prove to yourself, like it got really hard. I cried for a half hour. Like there was a Disney marathon that I did. I did Dopey. This was the first time I did Dopey. So it's like all 4 races, 48 point whatever miles in 4 days. It's like 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, all in a row. And it's the first time I did it. And I'm in the marathon and I wore leggings that had an inseam, it wasn't a seamless legging, which for girls, like you're going to get chafing on your inner thighs. Like you can even put, salty britches, whatever type of cream, but like with that amount of time in the heat, there's still friction. So I'm in the middle of this marathon and I knew I had a blister on my right inner thigh and the pain was like just awful. And I'm like running and crying. And I'm like, okay, when I get to Animal Kingdom, I'm going to go to the bathroom and, see if I can address this. Like I didn't have extra leggings or anything on me. So I'm like, I got to finish the race, another, I think it was 8 miles, like when the blister was really starting to hurt. And so I go and I clean it up, I put stuff on it, and I cried in the bathroom. And I was just like, I just gotta let this out of me. And I like splashed the cold water on my face, and I'm like, you could do anything for 8 miles. You'll be fine. You've run 8 miles a million times before. 8 miles is nothing, And so then I go out and I do it. And, was my time what I wanted? No, it wasn't. I was slower, of course. I took this like 6-minute break in the bathroom where I fell apart for a brief moment. But that's just stacking evidence that like I could be in an emotional spiral and I know I can troubleshoot the situation to get myself through it. I know that I can cry and sob for a moment and let all of that energy out of me and then I can choose something different in the next moment and keep going about whatever I'm trying to accomplish. And it's really like that those types of adventures or events it stacks proof. It really does. Like I know because I have done all of these things and like I said, I'm not like winning anything. Like most of these things do not go super smooth for me, but I know when stuff comes up in life, I can sort through this. I know there's a million different ways to get there. I can troubleshoot it. And I think like with the momentum and stacking wins and giving yourself evidence, that is a way for me outside of my business to continuously reinforce that I have the capability of figuring things out and moving through it even when it's uncomfortable. So that has served me really well.
Adrienne, thank you for sharing these
Yes.
insights and so powerful. I know it absolutely will resonate with those that are listening. How can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
So I am on Instagram at _Adrienne Crowley. My website is adriennecrowley.com. There's a contact form there. So anybody that wants to do one-to-one coaching, because it is like you're getting into a relationship essentially, where you're going to be working very close together. I do 90-minute coaching call with anybody that is interested in coaching, or even if you're curious about it. And it sounds like a time investment, but I don't charge, it's complimentary because I want to know that we're both going to jive if we're going to do coaching together. I don't want you to press the button and then decide you hate me when we start working together or vice versa. Like we're just not, So that's a really great way to kind of get into my world is to go to my website is adriennecrowley.com. You'll see the buttons for it. It's / contact and fill that out. Send me a message. We'll get on a call for 90 minutes, no obligation to anything. And it'll be an actual coaching session. But yeah, online, on my socials and stuff, I'll post, I do workshops and I'm trying to figure out a group experience right now that is going to probably run through half of the summer. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a fun one.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll definitely put the links in there for people in the
Yeah.
description. Thank you again. Really appreciate
Yes, I appreciate it. Actually, I know I already said one last thing, but can I say one last thing for real this time?
it.
uh, we had talked offline a little bit before, like talking about the body compass and how those body check-ins can sound kind of woo to people. And I had mentioned to you, like I was in a workshop and I led a workshop at rather a couple weeks ago or last week, and a woman said I almost didn't do it because it sounded like it was ridiculous or this is never going to work for me or it's not applicable. And then she was blown away by, working through the body compass and having those points of reference. But one thing I don't think I mentioned that blew me away when I was learning the tool is that your body's sensory systems can take in about 11 million bits of information per second, and the conscious mind can only handle like 40 to 50 bits. So you have 11 million versus 40 to 50. And so like society has conditioned us to go to the thinking mind and like logic our way through it, but there's actual like science behind using your body to help be your guide. And so I didn't think I mentioned that when we were talking about it. So I wanted to just like, if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, I'm all business and, like I'm going to like figure this out, think it through, my pros cons list, phone a friend, like all of these things that our logic mind, tells us to do, society conditions us to do, the ways to get to the answer. This is another tool that can work for you. And it's not just like, sounds good, feels good. Like it's actually grounded in science and works. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Appreciate that too.
Yes.